It's Sunday. It's about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I figured I would do another video today. Sundays are usually more of a relaxed day for me. Over the last few months, I started writing comedy sketches every Sunday. For the last 3 or 4 years, whenever I get something funny in my head, I would put it into a file and label it Chairs Missing. And this is what I'm doing on Sundays now. It's my comedy sketch show called Chairs Missing. I came up with that title inspired by the Wire album from the 70s called Chairs Missing. That's where I heard of that term. I thought it sounded pretty cool for like a Kids in the Hall, the State type of show. Saturday Night Live skits. It's completely absurd stuff. Like I would compare my sketch comedy show, well, it's just how I have it in my head right now. But every Sunday I write scripts about 10 pages long, and I'm trying to make them as ridiculous as possible. If you want to check them out, go on my Substack page. I have them all the scripts on there for free that you can read. This week I looked at what would it be like if men were the ones that got pregnant. So I wrote it last night, because I didn't want to do it today. I wanted to do this video today and keep the streak going. I made a video almost like every day for the last 10 or so days now, leading up to the release of my book in early May, probably May 1st or so, if everything goes as planned. And so I did that last night, so I didn't have to do it now, so I could do this video and talk a little bit more about my process of writing my book and stuff. And I picked another 10 records last night that maybe don't relate to my book as specifically as some of the other videos I made. But I probably talked about some of these albums in my book, or the influence of them, or at some point, all these records had some kind of memorable moment for me. They're all over the place again. I think my genre, my music appreciation is like how I write stuff. Whatever I hear in my head, whether it's a rap song, a punk song, a no wave song, heavy metal, if it's very peaceful lyrics, if it's violent lyrics, I just write it, man. I don't care how demented it is, how insane I sound. If something pops in my head, I just write it, and then I'll edit it, and then eventually, hopefully, it becomes something valuable or worthy of sharing with people. It's how I do my visual art stuff, like my visual art side of my brain, my creative brain. It's newer than this. Like I wasn't doing creative visual arts until recently. Yeah, I would mess around with digital paint programs and stuff like that, but I never took it seriously. Like now I form concepts and I'm like, all right, I'm going to make 20 paintings based on this concept. When I say paintings, it's all digital art, whether I'm using some of my photography and manipulating it with paint programs to make the photographs into some kind of different artwork. That's pretty much my style when it comes to the visual stuff. But it's like I said in another video, like how do you know if your stuff's good? You don't know. Art is unlike any other industry. Like if you're in the toilet paper industry, if you have the best product of toilet paper and people love using your toilet paper, you're gonna win. It's more of a scientific thing. Like most people's butts are the same, so if your toilet paper is the most comfortable, then you're probably gonna beat out the competition. Art isn't like that. Like art is very weird, and I've never made any money off my art, but it doesn't stop me from pursuing that as a career. because I think like eventually I'll be able to break through. I said this many times. It's a numbers game for me, where I just like, which is why I never restrict myself from exploring any area of creative thought, because something might break through eventually. And maybe that's the theme of this video today. Just uh, I took about 20, 30 minutes going through these albums and writing notes of what I want to talk about. So I don't want to be a scatterbrain and just, this won't be a complete stream of consciousness because I already took some notes on all these albums. More about what I wanted to speak about, but also I wanted to pay respect to these artists and the influence they've had over me. And so yeah, Sundays are usually, I want to let out the comedy side of my brain. That's what I've been doing. My goal right now for Sundays is to write 20 comedy sketches. I have 6 so far. So over the next few months, every Sunday I write like a 10-page script that could be a comedy sketch. And if you don't like bad language and kind of ridiculous humor, then you probably don't want to read these things. Fair warning, if you like this Chappelle show, The State, Kids in the Hall, I'm probably forgetting other stuff, but shows like that are just like ridiculous, then you probably enjoy these. Like, it's tough writing humor. I'm like, where do you set the boundary when you write a humorous sketch? And it's tough because comedy is like different than other art forms. There should be no restrictions at all. At least according to me, like, comedy should be there so people can let out all their frustrations about just the human condition and how we repeat history and all that shit. Comedy is maybe the most important way to just get all that out unfiltered without any bullshit. And, I think it's healthy for everyone, whether it offends you or not. Like, sometimes it's good to get offended. Like, it's good to get offended. Like, I'm not afraid to say that. You should get offended sometimes. Like, no one's perfect as an individual, or, it gets a little bit more confusing when you group people together by race or religion or nationality. Then people get offended as a group, and it gets a little weird at that point. But it's like, so I grew up in an Italian heritage, Sicilian heritage. Like, I love making fun of my own heritage. But as I was writing some of these scripts, I'm like, am I allowed to make fun of other heritages? Am I allowed to do this? And then eventually you're just like, dude, have a sense of humor. Like, if you're really going to be offended by something, then fine. Like, I'm not writing my comedy to offend people, writing my songs to offend someone. I'm just exploring the shit that's in my head. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. People shouldn't be afraid to explore anything that's in their consciousness, no matter how dark and dreary it is or how fucked up it may seem. It's just a part of the human condition, man. You're not the first person to have miserable thoughts or happy thoughts. It's just how it is. Like, I don't know. To me, it gets a little crazy like that. But I've censored myself as well. Like, I use bad language because it doesn't matter to me personally. But I don't know, if I was doing a talk in front of children, if I was giving a talk in front of like evangelical people who probably don't like hearing the F word or anything like that, I'm going to change how I approach things probably. So maybe that's the point of the language side. Like, you have to take the environment into like the NSFW stuff. There's stuff you don't say at work or in church or at other places. But if you go to a comedy club, you should not be offended by anything you hear. Like, anything at all. You should not be offended. This is my opinion. I know other people disagree with me, but that's fine. You could disagree with me. But all right, that's 10 minutes. Maybe I like to warm up with a ramble like that, just to get some of my thoughts out initially. So I'll get into the records now. Hopefully these show up kind of nice because I don't have good lighting in here. I could do this in my kitchen or something, but you could see it. It's Joan Armatrading. The reason I picked this album is because when I first got back into vinyl, this was the first one I played on my record player just to see if I set it up correctly and stuff, my speakers and everything. So this was the first album I listened to maybe 5, 6, 7 years ago when I first got into vinyl again. And it's a great album. For some reason, I just picked this one. My cousin gave me a bunch of his records back then, and this was one of the first ones I listened to. And yeah, she's pretty. I just found out today she's actually from like some British island or something. And this is from 1976. She's pretty popular. Like, I never heard of her before, but she won a couple Grammys in her life, and I believe this was her third release. And the more I was researching her today on Wikipedia, I hope everything was true at least. She's kind of a composer as well. She did things recently over the last couple of years. Like I think she composed a classical album, and just this album alone, it's very folky, but maybe a little bit more. It's kind of like that Judy Collins sound, a little like clean cut folk like that. But there's more of an edge to it, a little. Maybe her voice is a little bit more raw and powerful. It's a different flavor, but she plays great guitar on this. I never really explored her entire discography. This was the only one I ever listened to on vinyl, at least. But yeah, she was pretty popular in the day, and she's crazy talented. And I would recommend this to anyone who just likes singer songwriter stuff. And I can't really say much more about her. She was born in the West Indies, and then she was in the UK, I think, for most of her life. But yeah, I think she's pretty well known. You don't hear her name too often, but she's. I have to listen to her new stuff. That's on my like massive to listen to list. I got like a huge to read list on my Amazon Kindle, and now I have like so many artists that I want to explore fully. Like I even said yesterday, I did my cover of Stevie Wonder, and I was like, I want to go explore some of his other albums, and I didn't really get to that. I was just kind of skimming through stuff yesterday. But yeah, it's tough. There's so many things to listen to. You want to listen to old stuff. I want to keep up with stuff that just came out this year. Like I'm not whining about it. 50 years ago, people had to buy records. That was like the only way to listen to anything. Or you can listen to the radio, whatever the radio's telling you to listen to. And I think I talk about the radio towards the end of this. Um, well, this is from the 70s as well. I was hesitant to show this album because everyone knows this album, and it's like a reverse bias. Like you don't want to show albums that everyone has already talked about to death, and you don't want to show albums that everybody knows. But when it comes to an album like this, I can't lie, it was a big album for me. I was late to the party on this. Like, I grew up in the 90s. When I first started listening to music that I picked was like the mid 90s, and it was all punk rock stuff from Southern California, Epitaph. All that stuff was my first like musical love, I guess. So I didn't know Pink Floyd until maybe college, early 2000s. I knew Pink Floyd, like I knew The Wall. I think I watched it. maybe as a teenager, the movie The Wall, and maybe I knew a little bit about them, but I didn't listen to this entire album until like probably college, which is kind of weird. I think a lot of people listen to this earlier on. It's like a rite of passage or something. And I mentioned this album in my book a couple of times. It's got some of my favorite lyrics. Us and Them is one of my favorite anti war songs. When I list my favorite anti war songs, it's probably my favorite song on this, Us and Them. And yeah, did I say this is from 1973? I believe what Alan Parsons was the main producer. That's about all I can really say in terms of knowledge of this record. I read a bunch of Pink Floyd books though a couple years ago. Very interesting stuff. Um, I don't think there's anything bad. Even the Endless River, like from 2014, I like that. I enjoyed it. I thought it was really cool. Kind of ambient Pink Floyd stuff, cool guitar stuff from David Gilmour. I love Animals. I think that's a perfect record. The Wall's pretty much a perfect record. So if I had to pick like my favorite bands, Pink Floyd's in the top 10. Like I can't deny it. They've been very influential in how I want to create stuff. And even the Live of Pompeii, like that's like one of my favorite concerts to watch on YouTube. I think that they have a release in 2025 this year of something. Maybe it's a remastering or something. I don't know. It came up on my Spotify recommendations or whatever. Live at Pompeii. But yeah, you can't deny this album. Um, there's one line in my book where, again, I'm not trying to offend anyone. This is more just my mocking sense of humor. Like, there's a bit in my book where I talk about how no fault of their own, religious people kind of reflect kind of a bipolar philosophy because it's hard to create a God that fits the Old Testament and the New Testament. Like, I don't think it's not that easy to fit a God to fit every parable, every story, every theological uh, construct. It's very hard to find a happy medium between the two testaments. I'm not a biblical scholar. I've never read the entire Bible, but I grew up 12 years of Catholic school. I have some knowledge of how the symbolism works, the metaphors work, and all that stuff. So it's almost like a bipolar book. You get through the Old Testament, all the wrathful God and all the witchcraft stuff. You can't really call it anything else, like turning people to stone and rivers like blood and all the crazy stuff in the Old Testament about just mystical, mysterious shit. And there's some beautiful stuff in there as well. There is beautiful poetry throughout the entire Bible. The Book of Job, I kind of wrote a screenplay based on that. Um, but I was kind of getting back to this. I was kind of comparing if I was gonna, if I had children, like I would present them with Rage Against the Machine, the first one, as like the Old Testament, and I would present them with this one as the New Testament. They're like very, because rage is the angst and the anger and the rage, and then Pink Floyd is more like coming to terms with the human condition and how you want to get through life in a more peaceful, settled foundation. That's what I kind of get from this album. Like, it's a universal album. No one can really claim this in terms of a religion or nationality. It's just a universal album. I think that's why it just keeps selling everywhere. And it's probably what the most purchased album of all time, or one of them at least. I think that's what makes this one special because there's no bias really. Like I think it's just a universal message in the lyrics and stuff. And yeah, it goes into the theme of this video about how music can connect people together, whether you're from a different region of the world, different philosophy, and different language. Music is like that universal language, which so many people have said before. So yeah, that's Dark Side of the Moon. Again, like I didn't even want to show it because it's like everyone shows it, but I had to. It's just that important to my life like that. This one might be more obscure than other ones I've showed. Morgana King. It's a quiet thing from 65, 1965. I love her voice, man. She's also she was an actress. She was the mother in The Godfather, and she also does like this jazz singing. It's kind of dramatic and kind of like if you want an early version of like ASMR stuff, maybe it's kind of like this album. Like she almost whispers some of the vocals, and it's just really haunting. And right from the first time I heard this, I'm like, her voice just kind of knocked me out. And I don't know. I haven't listened to it in a couple of years, but it's it did have an. I had to keep this one when I got rid of my records because I don't know. She has a very unique voice, and it stayed with me from the first time I listened to it. Um, she had some connection to Frank Sinatra and other artists of that period. I think he kind of led her to the record label and had something to do with her career. But you know, she was pretty well known. She was in The Godfather. I'm sure a lot of people knew her in that scene or whatever. And yeah, I'll read more about her life. It seemed like she had an interesting life. I think she's from like Sicily, and then she kind of came to New York. So she probably has that kind of Godfather type of life, like the real life version of that. And yeah, I would check. I would recommend this to anyone if you like that classic 60s jazzy voice that's like just so smooth and soothing, and you never heard of her singing before. Check this out. This was a thrift store find, maybe like I don't know, 7, 8 years ago when I was really going to thrift stores a lot. So I probably got this for $1 or $2, but it's a clean copy and it just sounds fantastic. I think I even got this digitally so I could listen to it, and every song just hits, man. I don't know if she actually wrote these songs, but maybe some of them are just standards and stuff. But yeah, I would recommend, definitely recommend this to anyone if you like that 1960s type of classical arrangements almost. There's a jazziness to it too, and you can get lost in this if you listen to the entire album. And so we did three from the like early or the late 60s and 70s. This one is from 2009, and we're going all the way to Scotland, Glasgow band. I had to show this band. Hopefully this comes up. It's a cool cover too. Sparrow and the Workshop. This album is called Into the Wild. I think they only have 3 studio albums, but I was obsessed with this band when I first heard them. The lead singer, her name is Jill O'Sullivan, and I think she has some solo stuff too. If you want to check her out, Jill O'Sullivan, and I love this band. I wish they had more stuff, but the 3 albums they did are really good. If you like psychedelic rock, heavy, it's heavy. It's almost like a Black Sabbath type of atmosphere, and she's got crazy, powerful vocals. The backup singer is amazing. If you look them up on YouTube and kind of explore their live concerts, they do a couple of quiet acoustic numbers, but they're a heavy band, but they'll do these songs acoustic as well. And they have some of the craziest vocal harmonies I've ever heard in my life. And some reason Scotland always produces all these great bands. I was gonna make a list, but I don't want to because I'll forget people. But there's so many great bands that I found from the Glasgow scene. I guess most of them are from that area. Churches are one of my favorite bands, and I believe they're from around that area. There's just so many other ones. The Phantom Band, I think they're kind of connected to them, and I don't know, something about Scotland. I guess they just produce really unique music and stuff. But if you like psychedelic rock, like the Cranberries, but like heavier, the Cranberries mixed with like Black Sabbath or something, this is badass. In 2011 or 12, I took a long road trip to New Orleans by myself. It was just kind of, I wanted to get away. So I took like 2 weeks and I just drove to New Orleans and I drove through the entire Blue Ridge Parkway, through the Blue Ridge Mountains from like Roanoke all the way to like Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. And it was just one of the best experiences I ever had. And I listened to them almost like for half the trip, man. I would just keep listening to Sparrow and the Workshop like over and over again. So that's probably why I wanted to show this, because in my book I talk about a lot of the songs that I wrote came from that trip. I have a couple albums where all along that road trip I would just think up song ideas and record them on my phone or a recorder that I bought. And I brought a guitar with me so I could maybe get inspired and write some stuff. When I got to New Orleans, I did that. I did like maybe 3 or 4 songs came from that road trip, and that was the. I don't know if I really intended for that, but that's just how it goes. Like I would take road trips, and then once you get away, it's like you start forming ideas in your head. It's cool if you ever get like crazy writer's block for other people, songwriters, artists. Some people recommend just taking a walk and getting away from your thoughts and stuff. If you really get stuck, take a road trip, man. I haven't done it in a long time, since like 2018 or so. But if you really want to clear your head, I don't think there's anything better than just, even if you go alone. Maybe some people think that's kind of weird, but I like going alone because I could just use it as kind of a meditative pilgrimage to wherever. And a lot of times I would go to see artists play live music and stuff. So yeah, it was one of those things. That's the reason I wanted to kind of show them. They were a big part of that first road trip I took. And we're going back to the 70s with another Italian band. Well, Morgana King was also Italian, or wherever she was from. All right, this one, it's Italian progressive rock. And I'm going to say it incorrectly because I never learned how to speak Italian. Premiata, Forneria, Marconi. That's the best I can do. And this is called Photos of Ghost. There is an Emerson, Lake and Palmer connection, which I found out today. I believe this album is just kind of an English translation of their Italian album they made before this. And then maybe Emerson, Lake and Palmer kind of liked it. So then they managed to put English lyrics and stuff. But the lyrics are actually kind of memorable to me. I include one lyric in my book from this album, from I forget what song, maybe the first song, River of Life. But this is cool. It's very technical, progressive rock, and some longer tracks on here, like a lot of progressive rock records from the 70s. I believe I found this at some thrift store, and it just looked cool. It's a very, it's one of those covers that you'll buy for $1, and hopefully it's good music. and this one was well worth $1. And the reason I picked this, I did include it in my book. I think in the first chapter, I include a lyric from here because it kind of connects to my songs from the Rhine album. Um, so I wanted to show this one off, and it's kind of obscure. Maybe not. Maybe a lot of people haven't heard of this band, but if you like King Crimson and Emerson, Lake and Palmer and other Yes, even like progressive rock stuff, this one might be a little bit more dark and spiritual too. But it's they're very talented musicians. I would recommend this to anybody really. And I believe they came out with an album not too long ago, maybe even a couple years ago. And I need to go again research it and maybe listen to their later stuff. According to Wikipedia, I never like repeating stuff because I don't know if it's really true or not. But supposedly they wrote like a science fiction themed album a couple years ago. So I'm kind of intrigued by that because that's the type of stuff I like to write myself. Like really good concept albums like that, which is the perfect transition to this band. You can't even see this cover. Sorry. I still haven't found a way to really show things off. But this band's awesome. Magma. I only found them. These aren't like first copies, first pressings. This is like a later reissue. It's hard to find their stuff. They're a French, I was gonna say progressive rock, but it's not. They have like their own term called Zool. I believe I'm saying that correctly. It's either Zool or yeah, Zool. Zeuhl. That's how they term their music. The leader of this band, they're a French band from I guess they started in the 70s or something like that. Um, for the younger generation watching this, if you like Coheed and Cambria, maybe you'll enjoy this band too. Because today I just had that notion that they kind of write their albums like it's a graphic novel. Like each album is kind of a continuation of the story of some science fiction alien shit. I'm kind of disappointed in myself. I bought their entire digital discography a couple years ago, and I was like, all right, when I ride my exercise bike, I'm gonna go through everything and learn the story, get all nerdy about it, and I just never did it. I listened to most of the albums, but not in order. Like I wanted to learn exactly the story of all these things because there's a whole different universe attached to this band, Magma, and Christian Vander is the band leader, I guess you'd call him. I've watched a bunch of interviews with him. He's very interesting. He cites John Coltrane every time, like his main one of his main inspirations, which I thought was pretty cool. Because I hear it, like you'll get into one of their songs and it'll go on for like maybe 5 6 minutes, and then it goes to this place in your brain that just kind of you lose yourself after a while. And I think some of that jazz, Coltrane, some of the spiritual, even Alice Coltrane stuff, some of that spiritual jazz stuff does that where you don't even realize what you're listening to. You kind of just you hit this level of just musical insanity, but in a good way, like the good type of insanity, where you just completely lose yourself in the music. And this band does that completely. What if you want to call it partially like no wave? If you want to call it partially jazz, there's krautrock probably influencing this, and it's just weird. There's chaotic moments. There's like opera moments. You just have to go listen to it. Don't go by what I'm saying. Just experience it for yourself, and I guess you'll find out if you like it or not. And yeah, I didn't find this until maybe 4 or 5 years ago, 2020 times. Like this guy is just so immersed himself in this band and music. He put his own language. I think he invented his own language. Like this is the level of nerdiness. I don't think I'll ever get to that point, but you got to respect that. Even like the Lord of the Rings stuff, making up your own language and stuff, like that's a level of creativity and imagination that surpasses anything I've tried to do in my life. I've tried to write screenplays where it's like cave people. It's called Rinse and Repeat Part One. Originally, I wanted to make a screenplay with no language at all, and it's just people mumbling and grunting as communication. But eventually, I kind of invented my own like language, just mumbling, and there's very limited dialogue, so it wasn't that difficult to do. But to do it to the level that he did it, or Tolkien or other people, it's just nuts, man. Yeah, like there's a level of nerdiness when like it's almost like I can't just enjoy the music for the music. I have to go and learn what he's writing about and learn how he came up with it and learn. There's a happy balance between that. Like you don't want to get too nerdy about it. Like even Game of Thrones, I nerded out on that show. I had to learn about all the fan theories and all the crazy backstories of the tree people, and it just gets a little bit. I get too carried away with it sometimes. But yeah, go check out Magma if you like that weird type of, I guess, prog rock, but it's not really prog rock. All right, well, this one is completely different. Maybe it's better if I take them out. I guess. I think a lot of people know this album. Kenny Rogers, The Gambler. That's the best I can do. In 1978, and I don't know this album as well as the other ones. The reason I wanted to show this is just because I love The Gambler so much, just that song. So I've listened to this entire album. This was a thrift store buy, a couple dollars probably, but you can't deny The Gambler is one of my favorite songs, and I want to cover it at some point for the music, my musical DNA series. I'll pick this song at some point and try to do it justice. I'll try to find a different way, but it's already such a slowed down, folky song that I don't know if I could do it any other way. It's almost like to make this song different, you have to go like Me First and the Gimme Gimmes and make it into like a fast punk song or something. But regardless, eventually I want to cover this song. The reason I picked this album, I wrote a screenplay for my Madman's daily unequivocal comedy called Man and Deer. It's an animation, and it's just a complete fever dream of a story. But the lead character, the man, I didn't give these people names. It's just Man is the one character, Deer is the other character. Man and Deer. It could actually be like an Adult Swim cartoon if I wrote it like that. Like it could be a series like that. But don't steal that. And the man is kind of like a crazy, addictive gambler. He's a degenerate gambler in the screenplay, and it's based in Atlantic City. The deer is kind of like a aspiring lounge singer, and they kind of meet up, whatever. And there's a part of the screenplay where the deer character is performing in Atlantic City at some dive bar, and he sings "The Gambler" by Kenny Rogers. So there's part of me in that character. So I think it would be funny for me to cover this song and try to do it. the best I can or whatever. Um, yeah, it's just a great song. I feel kind of bad because I don't know this entire album. I've listened to it maybe twice, but I can't name any other songs that I really know that well. I'll have to listen to it again. But you can't deny The Gambler is just an instant classic song. And there's some dark lyrics in that song. Like I wrote this passage down because you think like, well, gambling is a drug, it's a vice, it's going to lead to possible, you know, dangerous elements in your life. If you're a gambler, you're inviting a lot of stuff into your life at that point. And I know because I used to go down to Atlantic City all the time. I used to take road trips to go to casinos, like to Maryland, to Indiana. I used to, that was like my destination to go find different poker rooms and stuff. Back in back in the day, I haven't gambled in a long time, and so this is one of the lines from The Gambler. Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving is knowing what to throw away and knowing what to keep, because every hand's a winner and every hand's a loser, and the best that you can hope for is to die in your sleep. Like, that's dark as shit, man. The best you can hope for is to die in your sleep. Like, that's such a good line. I love that shit. Recently, I listened to Bruce Springsteen, Nebraska, and I think that song's talking about like like a Bonnie and Clyde serial killer or something. And I was like, shit, I've never noticed that before because I don't pay attention to lyrics that much. I'm like, damn it, Bruce. He's talking about all this dark shit. It kind of makes sense. Nebraska album is kind of dark like that. It's dark and like kind of gothic almost, and gothic folky songs like that. But anyway, I wanted to mention this album because in case people forgot about Kenny Rogers, The Gambler, it's an all-time classic song, and maybe I'll listen to the rest of this album later on at some point to see how it holds up. All right, there's three left. This one is kind of recent, but I believe most of the songs are from the 70s. It just didn't become kind of known to widespread audience until the mid 2000s or like 2007. I think the documentary came out. So it's a band called Death. That's the name of the documentary, a band called Death for the whole world to see. It's punk. It's just political punk rock. It's badass. It's very badass music. This band's from Detroit, and I believe they're kind of brothers. I forget. I watched the documentary, but so long ago. I don't know if they're all brothers, but there's some connection like that. It's a great documentary, and one of the brothers was kind of like a spiritual eccentric almost in a good way. Like he was into that spiritual, mystical stuff, and maybe he kind of. I realize this today. Maybe he kind of subconsciously influenced one of my characters. I wrote a screenplay, Elegant Eccentrics, and the lead character is kind of like that. He's kind of just a little bit crazy like that. Not to say that this guy was crazy. I don't know enough about them, but one of the brothers was kind of like a spiritual eccentric like that. He's an interesting character. I think he's the one that wrote most of these songs, the lyrics and stuff. And they're great songs. I didn't learn about this band until I watched the documentary. They're from Detroit, and I believe they wrote the songs in the 70s. And it's three black guys trying to record punk music. Like, that's very cool to me. And I think it was three people. Yeah, and this helps me. David Hackney, Bobby Hackney, and Dennis Hackney. So they were all brothers, I believe. It first came out in '75, and Yeah, it was recording in Detroit, 1975. Politician in My Eyes, that's the one. Politicians in My Eyes, that's the one I remember. 'Cause it's one of the best documentaries I've ever seen. Maybe it's kind of similar to that Bee Gees one. Bee Gees, they had a documentary about the brotherly connection to their music and stuff, and it was great. One of the best documentaries I've seen as well. And I wanted to include this because it goes back to that theme I was talking about the connection to music. That it can't be, even in whatever period. It's probably difficult for three black dudes to start a punk band. Like it might be harder to fit a genre to make money in a commercial radio. Like everything's about imaging and stuff, and if you don't fit that commercial mold, it's probably difficult. But it sucks because I don't think they did much after this album. But this album's great, man. If they maybe if they had better opportunity, they would have created another 10 albums like this. So it, I watched the documentary again. I only watched it the one time. It was kind of like that Rodriguez one, where the dude nobody really knew him, but he became famous in South Africa somehow. It's similar story. Like this band became popular decades later, and it's just great punk songs. It's about very short album, maybe under 30 minutes, and it only has 7 songs, but they're all good. I'd rather have an album under 30 minutes, but it just doesn't stop. It just kicks your ass the whole time. And yeah, definitely recommend this. I think a lot of people found this back then when the documentary came out. But I wanted to show it just to, it kind of gets into that theme of how music can connect people together like that, probably better than any other language can. And this one also kind of goes in that direction because I would have never gotten into Anatolian rock, Turkish music. I never heard of Anatolian rock until I saw this band in concert. I don't know, I forget the year, in Philadelphia. It's probably 10, close to 10 years ago. It was in Philadelphia at the Kung Fu Necktie. And this band was just unbelievable. Altın Gün, I believe that's how you say it. And I was so amazed by them. I had to buy this album that night from their merch table. They were just so good, man. I'm still a fan. They had an album a couple years ago, just as good. It's just high energy, a different kind of progressive rock. It's fun. It's very like upbeat. Like you can't help but groove to this type of music. The bass and the riffing that they do on stage and their vocals are just seductive like that. They get very passionate about their music, man. There's a female singer, and sometimes the male singer takes the lead, and they both just totally, display this passion for their music that it's very, very addictive especially live. This was one of the weirdest concerts I went to because at that point in my life, I was always trying to find a concert to go to, maybe a few times a month. And for some reason, I heard this band one night, and then I was like, "Oh, they're playing in Philly. Let me go see this show." So I just went to the show by myself, and it was probably the last time I got a contact high because there was a lot of good smokiness in this little room in the Kung Fu Necktie. So maybe that added to my joyful experience. But yeah, these guys are crazy talented, crazy technical. They got pretty popular too. And yeah, it ties into what I'm talking about because I didn't know about Turkish rock. I didn't know anything about this. Anatolian scene, but because of them and because they got opportunities to play and they toured Philadelphia and other places. And just on a whim, I went to see them, and yeah, I was very happy that I made that decision. And quickly, I'll say they led me to two other older Anatolian musicians, Turkish musicians, Selda Bakan. I think Dr. Dre actually used something from her. He sampled something from her in one of his songs. Don't quote me on that, but I think he did. And the other, Selda Bakan, if I'm saying that correctly, apologies. Selda Bagcan. She was like a singer songwriter from the 70s, I think, in Turkey. And Baris Manko. That was the other guy that connected with me. He's got crazy bass stuff, and I would recommend them too. I didn't do the full deep dive of Anatolian rock. Partially, I did. I was trying to find stuff that just would instantly connect with me a couple years ago because there's a lot of it. There's a lot to explore, man. And the Baris Manko, one of his albums from 1983. I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but if you look up his discography, you want to check out one of his albums. The one I liked the most was from 1983. It's got a cool cover, like his face on it. It's all kind of distorted, but that's it. It's cool that one band could, and they're openly about it. They're influenced by the Anatolian scene, but they're making it more of a modern thing. But they're also covering some of the songs from the older artists and kind of continuing that legacy like that. All right, this is the last one. I wanted to show this. This was an album I recently bought a couple years ago, and there's nothing by Gary Newman that I've heard that isn't good. And this is Telecon 1980. It's just weird. He writes a type of electronic music that just it's kind of unlike anything else. Whether it's this, like his solo stuff, I guess you call it. I guess he writes all these things by himself, just through experimenting with synthesizers in his life, or the two-way army, which is probably mostly him. Like I listed this on my favorite albums of all time, my 501 favorite albums, and the two-way army as well. And what was that song called? Please Push No More. That one I heard on the radio driving from work or somewhere a long time ago. And it's one of those moments when you're driving in your car, you hear a song, Gary Newman, Please Push No More. I think it was on 88.5 WXBN, XBN. And it just totally just caught me off guard. Like, what the hell is this? And yeah, after that, I kind of looked him up and explored some of his stuff. I knew him from like the popular song from, I don't know, some of his more popular stuff, some of his music videos and stuff. But I didn't know he did the Two-Way Army and some of the more early electronic albums. This one just, I think it's a perfect album, man. Is it like emo synthesizer music? It's a little bit dramatic, I guess, but he just writes cool songs. I think he's one of the best songwriters. And I wrote a note here to just speak a little bit about the radio industry because of that story that I just told. There's a couple chapters in my book where I go into my love-hate relationship with commercial radio, kind of like my love-hate relationship with words in general. Because I do believe commercial radio is kind of it got to such a political degree across all formats, really. Like there's a I don't listen to the radio anymore, so it's kind of hard for me to speak about this because I don't know what it's like anymore on commercial radio. I don't want to shit on it because I don't listen to it, but if I was going to recommend if you live in Philadelphia area, I would recommend 88.5 XPN. I would recommend 90.1 WRTI. Those were the two I could put on at any time and be happy with what they're promoting. WRTI is more jazzy, classical stuff, but you'll find some obscure stuff on there. 88.5 is all over the place. They'll do ambient sometimes at night. They had like some ambient show for a while. I don't know if they still do it. They do popular music. They're all over the place. They'll have people come in for live stuff, and yeah, XPN's great. I believe they're both sponsored by supporters, like that type of radio service. But yeah, they promote local artists and just artists that might not get the attention that other commercial artists get. I'm not gonna go all Kanye. Like when Kanye was talking shit about commercial radio and he stopped his concert for like I don't know, and he just went kind of nutso with his radio rant. It is entertaining though. I will say that. Um, there's also a Tom Petty album called The Last DJ where Tom Petty was getting all political about that shit, saying how commercial radio doesn't really connect with people anymore and stuff. And I think it's a great Tom Petty album. Maybe he got shit on because what he was talking about, but he wrote great songs on that. The Last DJ. He went all Kanye before Kanye went all Kanye, because I think that album came out in the early 2000s. And it's not like this isn't an uncommon theme. Like when I say I have a love hate relationship with the radio industry, it's like commercial radio. I understand back when I was a kid, there was no streaming service, there was no internet in the early 90s. Like, if it wasn't for the radio, I would never hear music. Maybe I had cassettes back then at some point, and then I got CDs later on. Your first exposure to popular music is the radio, whether it's good music or bad music. Like, you don't know the difference at that point. You just want to hear music in general. So if I'm rocking out to like I'm too sexy for my shirt, too, or color me bad, I wanna like I remember these songs because it was like the Casey Kasem top 40 in my car. I'm like driving to church, you would hear these songs and be all like awkward because you're with your family listening to these songs. But I don't look at those experiences as bad moments, like because you're like 10, 11, 12, and you just want to hear music in general. And you don't know about the politics of the radio industry or commercial radio, how that shit works. So I'm not shitting on the radio industry. I know they have to, follow a script almost. And maybe it's different now. I haven't listened to commercial radio in years. Like, um, back when my record player was still working and I had a receiver, like, I would listen to the radio almost a couple nights a week. And then that kind of broke, and then I just kind of lost interest in it. And now I just use Spotify for pretty much everything, which Spotify is another thing I could make a whole video about because I kind of have some ethical dilemmas with Spotify. I don't know if I'm hurting artists by using Spotify so much. I use Spotify on a daily basis. Every post I make on my Substack and Medium, I'm sharing music through Spotify or YouTube. And it's like, I don't want to hurt artists in any way, but I've used Spotify for like 15 years, man. And it's just such a convenient way to explore music. But I will say, I try to, if I have the resources, every Friday I was buying stuff off of Bandcamp and supporting maybe more indie artists and unknown artists that way. I'm kind of weird with that spending habits. Like I would wait till the end of the year and then make a list of my favorite albums, 100 albums, whatever. And I try to buy as many as I could from obscure artists because Bandcamp seems like a better option. Bandcamp seems like a better option because they even promote it like that. I don't know if they still do it every month, but the first Friday of every month, like a larger percentage goes to the artist. They obviously care about that stuff, at least. I want to believe it's better than other places, I guess. But yeah, these are the issues I have now with streaming services. So it's not like there's ever going to be a perfect way to distribute art and be fair about it and be balanced about it and not fuck people over. It's a business like any other business, man. And I mentioned earlier, art is a different kind of commodity. You're never going to make everybody happy with your art. Some people are going to hate you just because they want to hate you. And some people won't connect to your music genuinely. Your music, your painting, whatever. I wrote that in my book because I kind of made that realization halfway through that don't waste your too much of your time trying to make everyone like you because that's not going to happen. It's a good ideal. It's a good utopian way to look at relations with people, but you're never going to reach that point where everyone's going to like you. And maybe if you're Stevie Wonder or Tom Petty, but I'm sure Tom Petty had his detractors. I'm sure some people don't like Stevie Wonder, but I don't know. It's different. Like I'm losing my train of thought on this one. But Gary Newman. Gary Newman. I think he's one of the most original, unique songwriters. I love electronic music, and I think he does it in a different way from other people. And if you never really explored his stuff, like I think there's still stuff I've never listened to that I have to get into because he's got a lot of stuff from this time period that I didn't explore as much as this one. But yeah, definitely Gary Newman I had to put on this like because he's one of my favorite just songwriters, composers, whatever you want to call it. I think most of his experiments work out on the plus side because sometimes you can experiment with different instruments, different ways of writing stuff. Just because you're experimenting with a new thing doesn't mean it's going to be successful. But there's genius people like Gary Newman that I don't know, they have a part of their brain that just allows them to explore different things like that. And yeah, that's it. I think I went for about an hour, so I'm going to cut this video here. Uh, Again, the main reason I'm doing this is to prepare for my book release. I'm trying to give people a look into some of the influences that I found throughout my life. A lot of these today were from the last few years. I wasn't a big Gary Newman fan or Magma, Altın Gun, that was from a couple years ago. Death was probably like 10 years ago. I've always loved that Kenny Rogers song. Pink Floyd, that was something from my 20s. So maybe that's the only one. Dark Side of the Moon, I fell in love with that album probably in my 20s, so early 2000s, I guess. But yeah, the main theme of this video was, and it's one of my main philosophies, what I said before, that music is the best way to bring people together. Because I guess you can still have communication failure with music. People will interpret songs differently or artists and stuff. And I kind of go into that as well in my book about the perceptions of music and artists and stuff like that. That's one of my main themes actually, just people's perception in general. And yeah, these are a lot of the concepts I try to explore more poetically. whether in my lyrics or just in my prefaces before you get to the lyrics in my book. So yeah, I'll make another video up until Thursday, I believe. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And that will take me to May 1st. I have about maybe 300 to 400 pages left to edit of my book. And then I think I'll be done by Wednesday or Thursday. If that happens, then I'll release the book right away on Thursday, I guess. And the only other different video I'm going to make is tomorrow, I think. I think I said tomorrow. Sorry. Yeah, tomorrow I'm going to read a chapter of my book. It's kind of a shorter one because I do kind of have a problem getting through an entire chapter, and I don't want to try to do it like numerous times. I'm only gonna do it once, so I'm probably gonna mess up a lot. Just reading my chapter and trying to get through it as cleanly as possible, just to kind of hear myself do it. If I can be believable and people can like my voice, it's tough. Like I give voice actors so much credit, and the chapter I picked is called Animated Eden. It's one of my albums called Animated Eden from a couple years ago. And it's kind of a funny chapter. It's short, maybe just 2 or 3 pages, and then 8 songs with the lyrics. So I'll read that tomorrow, and hopefully I can do that pretty cleanly on the first attempt. I'm going to do it just once, just so you know the conflict I'm having with my narration almost, because it's tough to read an audiobook. And I'm even considering using artificial intelligence at this point, paying someone or an artificial voice to read my book if it sounds kind of good. I might try that if that's what I have to do, but I don't think people would appreciate that. Like, I don't know. Like, I got a weird voice. I don't know if it's good. Do people want to hear my voice for 1,000 pages? I don't know. Is it considered like non-artistic? Like, I'll lose my artistic credibility if I just pay for an artificial intelligence program to read my book, and that's how I release my audiobook. I personally, I kind of don't want to go that direction. I really don't. I feel like that's a cheap way to do things, and I don't know. I'm still considering kind of those dilemmas right now. But that's my plan for tomorrow. I'm gonna read a chapter from my audiobook. It's kind of about like my love of cartoons and Inspector Gadget. So it's kind of weird, but I wanted to use that one because it's shorter. It's only like 2 or 3 pages, and it's kind of funny in my opinion. Hopefully, it's funny to a lot of people as well. So that's it. Hopefully, some of these records sparked your curiosity and you'll find something you like. Um, there's some more obscure stuff, so if you haven't heard some of these, go check it out wherever you get your music. And yeah, that's it.